Hello everyone, this is JG1 Barton, and in this short video I want to go over airspeed over altitude and why airspeed is more important than altitude. Not that altitude isn't important, but airspeed always takes precedence over altitude. And in combat this is especially true because your wings need airspeed in order to produce lift. So your engine produces thrust, your wings produce lift. And your wings can't do that if you don't have airspeed. If there isn't a flow of air going over your wings, you don't have lift. And if you only have enough airspeed to produce enough lift to keep your aircraft in the air, then you don't have the excess energy needed to maneuver. So if you're flying straight and level, and that's all you have the energy to do, then if you roll the aircraft to try and turn, your aircraft will necessarily give up altitude in order to do that. And if you try to keep your nose up and maintain your altitude while you try to turn without the energy to do so, your wing will cross its critical AOA and it will produce a stall. And that's really bad for combat. So you need speed to produce lift, and you need excess lift to turn and to maneuver in combat. Also, speed is very good because the faster you're going, the farther out in front of you your opponents have to shoot. And the larger the lead that they have to produce, the bigger the error, the bigger the chance of error. And this goes especially for shots that increase in distance. So the farther away from your opponent you are when they shoot at you, the further they have to shoot in front of you in order to hit you. And that also produces a condition at some point where you can see where their bullets are going and then evade them, because there'll be enough time for those bullets in flight for you to predict what their path is going to be and maneuver out of their way. You can't do that when you don't have enough airspeed. And the fact that a lot of people think about altitude as their safety net instead of airspeed as their safety net gets a lot of people killed. And what we're going to go over in this video is a fight where that exact thing happens. And in this situation, I'm flying a BF-109 F4. I'm at about 4,500 meters. I have just over 400 kilometers an hour airspeed, and I'm in a maximum continuous power mode. So I'm at altitude, I'm flying near the front line. I think I'm behind enemy lines at this point, and I'm just in a cruising state. I'm out hunting, and I'm in a pretty good position. I'm not invincible by any means, but I'm in a really good spot energy-wise. And I'm going to get jumped by somebody here very shortly. So we'll start. I'm in a left-hand turn here. I'm looking down, but I have a blind spot because I haven't been looking level with me on the horizon. And so someone else is going to come in right there. I initially pick up this bandit or this bogey at this point because I don't know that it's an enemy at this point. But I see that they're on my 9 o'clock, and I see that their nose on me. And, well, you can see the smoke trail from their engine, so I know they're at high power. And that means that they're aggressively maneuvering towards me, so that's an indication that even if this is a friendly, they're putting themselves in a position to fight, and then I should do the same thing. So I'm initially going to go up on power, and I'm going to bunt. I'm going to start to put my nose down because I want more airspeed. You can just start to hear my engine rev up, and you can see the aircraft start to nose over. I don't know how much energy this guy has, but considering that he's cutting my corner, it makes it look like he's got energy. This ends up being a Lag 3, which is an inferior aircraft, especially at these altitudes. But he's in a really good position, and in the energy states that we have right now, considering that I don't really have a good read on his energy state, he's in a pretty good position, and he's definitely a threat to me at this point. So in order to get a better read on his energy state, I'm going to push my nose over and get even more airspeed so that I can minimize his close rate and buy myself more time and more options. And as I bunt over and begin to dive, he's going to break off. And that's going to allow me the opportunity. See here, he's already broke off. This is going to allow me the option to assess the situation. And the first thing I notice is that when he comes off pretty hard. It doesn't even really look like he's looking at me. Maybe he can see me over the leading edge of his wing, but the fact that I can see the bottom of his plane very well means that he's getting perhaps a little bit complacent with his disengagement here. And so I'm gonna be watching him, and I'm going to be looking for the option to come back, because now I know that I'm safe. Now I can assess the situation a little bit better and see if there's an opportunity for me to re-engage. And as I continue out and away from him, I'm seeing that he's climbing very hard. And that's right there. That is fully the bottom of his plane. I know he can't see me right now. And he's got his nose way up in the air. And this is kind of curious to me because I know he cannot have a lot of airspeed. And as we look at him, you can see look at how much angle he has. His nose is way in the air. And as we continue, sometime a little bit later, when he levels out a little bit, the angle between his smoke trail here and his angle of attack is going to be quite obvious that he's got a lot of AOA trying to keep his nose in the air and trying to climb. But like I said earlier, if you don't have enough airspeed to get the amount of lift that you need to continue to maneuver, then you're just wasting your energy, because your engine is meant to propel you forward and your wings are meant to lift you into the air. You climb with the lift you have over your wings, not with the propeller. So as I see him disengage and start to climb and put himself at look at how slow he looks. He's putting himself in a very vulnerable position. I have a lot of speed, even though he has altitude. I'm in a really good position at this point. So now we're neutral with each other, and I think I have the energy advantage. So now I'm going to return and I'm going to engage, but I'm going to continue to watch what he does as I come into this fight. And here, we'll pause and we'll go to external, because you can see that this is just a track, so it isn't exactly accurate. The smoke is way above the exhaust stacks on this plane and off to the sides, but you can see just how much angle his wings are versus where the smoke trail from his engine is. He's got a lot of angle of attack dialed into this thing, and I know he doesn't have a lot of airspeed. So that means he doesn't have a lot of excess energy to maneuver, which makes him vulnerable at this position. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to attack him, and I'm going to keep my nose low because I want to maintain my energy, my airspeed. But I'm going to start to climb a little bit because I do want to manage my distance to him. Here I'm checking my 6, as you should always do before an engagement. And this kind of reminds me of, I think, 2 videos ago with the P-51, where I was starting from the bottom, but it was the exact opposite position where I was climbing at, my maximum, and I didn't have the energy to fight. And the first thing I did was put my nose down. This time, the opposite is true. I have the energy and my opponent doesn't. So I'm going to pull up into him, and I could go straight after him and put my nose out here and try and take this high angle shot. He's not going very fast, so he's not going to be able to maneuver, but there really isn't a lot going on here that would make me time sensitive to try and take a shot that I don't need to take. I have the energy. I'm just going to push through him and come up over the top of him in the maneuver egg and use that to drop into his control zone and see what he does, because I know I have the aircraft that's faster. If he dives and tries to make this a little bit harder of a fight, I can always disengage. But if he doesn't, then I'm going to put myself in a position of control where I can get an easier shot later. So I'm going to come through, keep my nose behind him in a lag pursuit. I'm going to put him off to the side where I can see him. Check 6 one more time. We'll go a little bit further. This is the point where I pretty much know that I've got him, because he should be putting his nose down right now. Where is he? Where am I? There I am. He should be putting his nose down, but you can tell that he's still pulling back on the stick, and he's got his lift vector on me, and he's trying to pull into me. This guy's trying to fight, but he barely has enough energy to fly, and this is not going to work very well for him. Because he's not putting his nose down and going for airspeed, I know that this should be a pretty easy kill, and I don't have to push myself, because if I see him going nose down at this point, because I'm at the top of the maneuver egg, I can really crank my stick back and whip my nose back down around and give chase. But because he's not, I'm going to float above him and just kind of try to put myself in a better position. And here I'm sliding in on his control zone. He's switching back to the other side, and this is where I'm going to take a shot. This is probably the worst shot that I'm going to get at this point. I took it just because my nose happened to cross his flight path. But this is an example of what you should do in a defensive situation. Unfortunately for this pilot, he happened to do it inadvertently because he stalled. But if you notice, his wing is almost pointed at me, and he's knife edge. So this is a very small target to shoot at, and it's also one that's difficult to hit because his flight path isn't straight, it's curved. And that curve is really hard to predict. And this small profile is very hard to hit. It makes it a very small target. So this is what you want to do if you end up going through an opponent's gun sight. You want to get skinny, and you want to be as unpredictable as possible. So I missed a couple of shots there, and it looks like he's putting his nose down, which is good for him. But now he rolls, and he puts his nose back up. So he went from a situation where maybe he could get his nose down and get some airspeed and try to maneuver. He's still in a really bad position. But he goes from one where he could be getting into a better position, at least defensively, to maintaining this really bad spot. And now I have a much better shot at him because I'm inside of his turn circle. I'm more or less on the same plane as him. His flight path is much straighter across my nose, and I have a much better shot. I have a much better profile to shoot at. And so here, another stall, and now I'm deep in the control zone. You can see him struggling so hard. At this point, he should just be trying to get airspeed, but even with his nose down, he's trying so hard to maneuver that his plane can't cope with it, and he's stalling, and his plane is behaving unpredictably. You can't do anything without airspeed in a fight. All of the air underneath you means absolutely nothing if you don't use it to get airspeed. If you don't use it to get kinetic energy, all of that potential energy is wasted. Here I'm going to get one more shot, and I get a lucky hit onto the fuel tank, and he explodes. So someone who had a beneficial or an advantageous position on me at the very beginning of this fight ends up going down in flames because they mismanaged their energy. So make sure when you're in a fight, you understand that airspeed is life and altitude is life insurance. Don't hang on to your security blanket and throw away your life. You only have altitude so that you can turn it into airspeed, and when you're in a fight, airspeed is key. Airspeed is life. If you want to live, you gotta be fast. Again, thank you very much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Happy hunting.